Hey guys. Alright, so last time we had a window. Ta-da! Very cool. And that was it. So that was, kind of exciting, but not very exciting. So today we're going to look a little bit more at about what we can do with our window using GLFW. Now, we are going to look at GLFW, but in general, window management is handled with events, all right? So this is how it works in the Windows API. I haven't used Linux or Mac, but I'm assuming they work in a similar way there as well. And that is the operating system sending you events about key presses or focus change or window movement and stuff like that, and then you do what you will with that. So we're gonna look at the GLFW documentation here. So I just went to do GLFW code documentation. And then there's this HTML documentation. All right. So here's pretty much everything we're gonna need to know. So let's start with input guide here. So receiving events, polling and processing inputs. Let's check that out. So here's a bunch of stuff. We want keyboard input. So the way that GLFW is set up, and this sort of is different from context creation to context creation. But the way you do it in GLFW is that you bind callback functions to Windows. Windows being, Windows that you open up, Windows the operating system. You bind callbacks for all of these events. So there will be a callback for keyboard input and one for mouse input and so on. So let's do one for keyboard inputs. And that's called GLFW. I actually don't remember what the name is. Set key callback. All right. GLFW set key callback, and then you specify which window you want to bind this callback to, and then use a function pointer to the callback. All right, so let's do that. So I'll do I forgot it. Set key callback. Great. Window, and then okay, let's see. GLFW key fun. I like to have fun. Okay, so this is the function. So the GLFW key function. So let's go check out what that looks like. So I'm just gonna go to the header. You can probably find it in the documentation, undoubtedly. If I maybe somewhere, it doesn't actually seem like it's linking anywhere. But I'll just go check in the header. It's quite easy. So you can either search, Control F to search for it. Let's do that actually. GLFW, what was it called? Key fun. There it is. So here's a type def to a function. So it returns void, and it takes a window pointer and then 4 ints. And thankfully they have commented here what the arguments are. So the window is pretty straightforward. This is the window that received the event, and then we have the key. So this is a virtual key. This is like what it will be like A or S or D that GLFW has sort of defined for you. Then we have the scan code, and that's actually the hardware level key that you pressed. So that's more of a low level checking, so it won't do any sort of language lookup or key rebinding lookup. It will actually just return which button on the hardware you pressed, which can be convenient. And then here's which action you took. So it could be press, release, or repeat. So that means if we press this button, or if we release the button, or if it's repeating the key press. And then the last one is mods, and that's which modifier keys. So that would be Control, Alt, Shift, and so on, most likely. Great. All right. So let's make the function then. So I'll just do voids. Whoops. Handle key events. All right. And then the first was a GLF window. And then it was, let's check it out actually. I forgot. Key scan code action mods. Okay, so it's key int key, and then it's int scan code, and then it's int action, and then it's int modifiers. All right. Great. And let's bind it. So I'll do handle key event. Whoops, I don't want to call it. Right, we don't want to call the function. We want to send in the function to the to the call as a callback. So we want to give a pointer to the function, like call this function when the key callback happens. Great. So let's run it and see what happens. If it even compiles, and it does. So, all right. So not very interesting. I'm mashing keys right now, but nothing's happening because we're not doing anything in our callback. If you don't compile, make sure, like some fallbacks are, make sure that you are not calling handle key events, of course, because that does not take. Yeah, first of all, it doesn't take 0 arguments, but also that this will send in the return value of handle key event to the callback to the set key callback function. That's not what we want. Second pitfall: if you, for example, wrote int or something, some return value, or one of the arguments happened to be in the wrong place. Name doesn't matter, but placement does. It will say that it cannot convert argument. This is your function. It cannot convert it to the glfw key font. So make sure that the return value and all the arguments are in the right place. Some common pitfalls. Great. All right. So let's print here. Let's use print. Key event, and then we'll print the key. All right, so if I hold a key, and there we go. So now if I mash a keyboard, we'll get a bunch of numbers. And as you'll see, if I press a key just real quick, let's quick R, it prints twice. Look at that T. It prints twice every time I press a key here. Now I want you to guess out loud why that is. Why is it printing twice every time I press a key? And the reason is that we're always printing, right? So we're just printing no matter what action is being performed. So that means we're printing, because this is being called for several actions. So if you remember in the function comment, it's being called when you press the key, and it's also being called when you release the key. All right. So that's why it's being printed twice, because it's printed once when we press it down, and then it's being printed again when we release it. And that's why when I hold it, it just it spams every time Windows sends a repeat message to our window. So let's only print when we're pressing. So I'll just do so if action is not glfw press. And I got this from looking at the comment here. It says action could either be glfw press, glfw release, or glfw repeat, right? So I'll just check it. Okay, if it's not press, so we only care about pressing, then return, all right? So now we're sure that anything that happens in this function will only happen if we're pressing a key. So I'm going to compile that. And now we should only get one print. So even if I hold down a key, it only prints once. Great. So okay, so how do we check which key we press? So either we can use the scan code, which is like, if you're making a game engine, usually you want to check the scan code, because if someone's using Dvorak or some other keyboard binding for some reason, you still want the buttons to be where they kind of are. So WASD, for example, you don't want it to move around if the user happens to have a different keyboard layout. You want them to be in the place you've defined them to be on the keyboard. So that's when you'll usually use the scan code. However, using the scan code is a little bit complicated because you have to look up the scan code numbers and whatever. So for simplicity's sake, we're just going to use the virtual key here, where if I press W, it will say, you pressed W. And it won't care where the W is. It would just sort of, if there's W, you get W. So let's see if key is equal to glfw key let's do space. So let's say we want to jump in our game. Whoops. I'll use print. Wahoo! Like a certain plumber man. And if I hit any key now, so nothing happens until I hit space, it will say wahoo. Very good. And maybe we'll do like if key is equal to W. Yeah, so we'll do key W. Then we'll do it's like hiya, like a where you smash people there, hiya. So we're doing an up smash or something. Whatever it is you are defining in your game to do. But let's do something a little bit more productive. So we'll do like if we hit escape, we want our game to close. So this is very convenient. This is usually what I code in the first time I make a new project, or the first thing I do when I make a new project. So in a glfw to close a window, we call glfw destroy window. So we used annihilate window. And let's see what happens. So I press down escape, bang, and it closes. Great. And important to note is this this while check here. We check window should close, and this is important. If I change this to just an infinite loop, I actually don't know what will happen, but let's take a look here. Escape. Okay, so what happened was that the window actually gets destroyed, but the game is still running, or the program is still running, as you can see here. Visual Studio still thinks we're running, and that's because we're not exiting this loop though. So we're doing glfw poll events, but there's no window open, but the game is still sort of keeping on. So if your game is not quitting down properly, make sure this while loop is specified correctly. All right. So let's do some other stuff. So let's do mouse events. So let's do handle mouse events, and we don't know exactly what those arguments are yet, but let's check. glfw set I don't know, mouse button callback. Yeah, great. So we'll do window and handle mouse event. All right, so let's see here. Is incompatible with parameter of type glfw mouse button fun. Yeah, let's check that out. glfw mouse button fun. There it is. No, wait, no, that was the return value. There it is. Okay, so here's the type def. Okay, so it takes the window as the first parameter, just like before. Button. So that's the first int, so that's just the button, and then it's the action, and then it's the modifier. So it's quite similar to the key function, just it skips the scan code. So let's do that. So we'll do a window int button int action. So that's the same thing. If it's down or up, I think are the only two ones. Yeah, it's one of glfw press or glfw release. So it doesn't have a repeat here because Windows doesn't repeat mouse presses. So we'll print here. So I guess we'll check. So if button is glfw, I think it's button. Yeah, mouse button left. There we go. So if the button is glfw mouse button left, then there's probably right and middle and so on, and probably mouse 4 and mouse 5, whatever they are called. We'll do like kapow, like we're shooting a gun or something. That'll be cool. Oh yeah, there we go. So I forgot an argument. So I forgot modifiers here. So that's why I was complaining. Modifier. Go. So now if I press this window with the mouse, I should get a kapow. There we go. And again, it's printing twice for the same reason that we're printing always. We are not considering we're not considering if we're pressing down or if we're releasing the mouse button. So I'm just gonna hit escape, and I'm gonna do the same check here. So I'm just gonna do, if we're not pressing, then return, and now we should only get one print. Yes, there it is. Great. All right. So there's lots of these events. All right. So if I just go into the documentation here, this was just the input guide. So there's, this mouse inputs, there's the cursor position. Position has a callback where it returns like the X and Y position. That's most likely we're gonna be using that. You can also get just the mouse position here. Which actually, let's try it out. So GLFW get cursor positions. Let's try that actually. So when we're shooting, we also want to print out like where we are shooting. So that, let's see, this takes 2 pointers with the X and Y position. So we'll do 2 doubles. That is, we'll do X and mouse Y. And then we'll do GLFW get mouse, what was it called? Get cursor position. Oh, whoops. Window, and then mouse X and mouse Y. And then we'll print that out. U shot, and then modifier, or the format specifier is F for floats or doubles, for floating point values with mouse X and mouse Y. So there we go. So U shot 166.72, and if I hit if I hit in top left corner, we'll get close to 0, and if I hit there in the down right corner, we should get close to like 800 by 600, because that's the resolution of the window. So we're getting quite close to that. Great, so now we have a way to sort of get where our mouse is, and we're going to be using that later for, camera movement and such like that. Great, but it's also more than input, of course. If we go back to the introduction of the documentation here, we also have a window guide, and here we can get let's see, properties and events. We have a callback for setting the size of the window. So here, this callback we will call when we're scaling up the window, which we're going to use later. Let's see. Size limit, here's a callback for the position of the window, and there's also functions to get the position of the window or setting the position of the windows, which is quite nice. Titling of the window is set here. And so on. There's an event for basically anything you can do with a window, so that's very convenient, and we're going to be using those. So that's it for GLFW and window events, and I'll see you guys next video.